You want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it?
The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered. And this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't gonna be that fun.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Chip Lake. I am guest hosting the Doug Collins podcast today. Doug is busy serving our country in the United States Air Force Reserves. And I hate it Doug's not with us today because we're going to talk about kind of a brewing situation in the U.S. House with Marjorie Taylor Greene sending a 5-page letter to her colleagues yesterday that we're going to talk about, escalating pressure on Speaker Mike Johnson as the threat of another ouster looms. So we're going to start talk about that. Also, we're going to talk a little bit of eclipse. We had the eclipse on Monday, which was exciting, and we're going to talk a little bit about that with James. And then I know it's Wednesday, but I normally am not on the podcast on Monday and Wednesday. I normally join James and Doug on Friday Fun Day. So we're going to mix it up a little bit, and James and I are going to talk about the NCAA basketball finals that happened Sunday, Monday, and then a big event, a big golf event this week, the first major of the year. The Masters tournament, 2.5 hours down the road from where I am sitting right now in Augusta, Georgia. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So stick with us, and we'll be back right after the break.
Hey, folks, when you look out and you see the country and just the disarray it is, you see the Biden administration, you see the wholesale prices have just went through the roof again. Inflation is tearing us up. If you have your finances all impinged in just a few areas, if you're just in stocks and bonds and you're not diversified, I got some news for you. You need a navigator. You need somebody to help you get to where you need to go with those finances. And I can't think of anybody better to do that than my friends at Legacy Precious Metals. You need precious metals in that portfolio. You need gold and silver. And Legacy Precious Metals, the folks there, they're the navigators. They know how to deal with tough times. They know and how to look ahead and take your personal situation and make it something that can be workable for you in the long term, because that's, at the end of the day, that's the one you're most concerned about. You need to make sure that your personal finances and your retirement are secure. You need folks like Legacy Precious Metals helping you in that. They will take the time to learn you. They'll learn your finances. They'll learn where your investment goals are, and they'll help you get there. And metals and gold right now, in this kind of crazy inflation, in this kind of crazy economy with the Biden's economy, is just, you need that help. And Legacy Precious Metals is the one to do that. So give Legacy Precious Metals a call, 866-528-1903, 866-528-1903, or you can always visit them online at legacypminvestments.com, and you can download their free investor's guide. Legacy Precious Metals, they're the ones you need. They're the navigators to help you through these turbulent times. You might have heard Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of the box stores or the shopping channels as the way they used to. They've been part of the cancel culture, so they want to pass the savings directly on to you by having a $25 extravaganza. When Mike started MyPillow, it was just one product company. With the help of his dedicated employees, they now have hundreds of products. Some of you may not even know about that. So to get the word out, I want to invite my listeners to check out the $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-pillow use My Pillows are just $25. My Pillow sandals, $25. There's 6-pack of towel sets, $25. Brand new 4-pack dish towels. You guessed it, just $25. And for the first time ever, the My Pillows with all new Giza fabric, just $25. All orders over $75 will see free shipping too. This amazing offer won't last long, so go to mypillow.com and use the promo code Collins, that's COLLINS, or call 800-986-3994 today. That's promo code Collins.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Again, my name is Chip Lake. I am normally a staple on Friday Fun Day, but as I had mentioned before the break, Doug is out serving our country admirably at United States Air Force Reserve duty. So he asked me to sit in today, and so what we're going to do today is we're going to start. First of all, I want to welcome. Before we start, I want to welcome James again to the podcast. James, I know you don't normally kind of play the role of contributor on Wednesdays, but welcome to Wednesday, April 10th edition of, I would call it Friday's finest, but it's really Wednesday's finest. James, welcome.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this was supposed to be my day off, and
Yeah.
you ruined it.
Yeah.
But no,
It's not. You've been called into duty.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump on. I'm gonna let you do your job and handle all the politics. And if you want to ask me a question about it, I'll be like, yeah, sure, totally, and then we'll move on from it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this is good, and then we'll jump into the fun stuff. But we have important stuff to talk about because it is a weekday, and we could just start. You could just start right off here. Mike Johnson getting kicked out of the House.
Yeah. So, Congress just came back from a 2-week recess this week, Easter recess. They usually take 2 weeks off, and this year was no different, James. And I really wish Doug was here to kind of get his thoughts on it, but we can get Doug's thoughts on it on Friday because I don't think this story is going away. I think it's going to be here for a while, and it made a little bit of news yesterday, but I think as we continue to go through really go through time and go through all that the House has to do with respect to continuing resolutions and passing budgets and funding the government, et cetera, et cetera. I think this story is going to get bigger and bigger because yesterday when they returned, Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia, who represents district up in North Georgia that was actually right next to, just west of the district that Doug represented for such a long time in Congress, sent a 5-page letter to colleagues. And James, I'm not going to read all 5 pages of the letter. I wouldn't do that to any of the listeners of the Doug Collins podcast, but I do want to read parts of that letter and then talk about what I think that means for the Republicans in the House, for the House in general, et cetera, because I'm not certain that we are not heading for another vote on what is essentially a no confidence vote and vacate the chair of the speaker. But I'm going to tell you why I think this one's going to be different than I would say the other two, really. I mean, in January of last year, when Republicans took over, Kevin McCarthy, on January 7th of last year, it took him 15 ballots to become speaker. And it was just absolute chaos. It was very embarrassing for Republicans, didn't make us look good. And then he served as speaker, James, if you remember, for 9 months. And then in October of last year, Matt Gaetz from Florida authored a motion to essentially vacate the chair. And so by a 216 to 210 margin back in October, Kevin McCarthy was ousted from the speaker's gavel.
And how long was he in that spot?
9 months.
So Mike Johnson will be shorter than that if he gets booted?
If he gets booted, it will be shorter than that. He has now been in.
Back. It's not good.
Yes, yeah, just a few days short of 6 months. But let me read you some of the rhetoric from Marjorie Taylor Greene's letter. Now, keep in mind, Mike Johnson was not from the Kevin McCarthy wing of the conference, right? He didn't vote with 8 Republicans to oust Speaker McCarthy, but Mike Johnson was and still is a very conservative member of the House. But let me read you some of the rhetoric in Marjorie's letter. And it starts out like this, and this was dated yesterday, April 9th, 2024. It starts out, "Dear colleague, before we left for Easter break, I filed a motion to vacate Speaker Mike Johnson after he passed the second minibus, which was essentially it's a bill that that funds government programs. It was House Resolution 1102. She goes on to say in the letter, Mike Johnson has unfortunately not lived up to a single one of his self-imposed tenets. Not one, she says. Speaker Johnson's omnibus did nothing to stop Biden's deadly border invasion. It fully funded it. It did nothing to stop the energy-killing Green New Deal climate agenda. It fully funded it. It did nothing to stop the weaponized DOJ and FBI. It fully funded it. It did nothing to stop the trans agenda on kids. It fully funded it. It did nothing to stop abortion. It fully funded full-term abortion clinics. As a matter of fact, there's very little daylight. This is according to Marjorie's letter to her colleagues yesterday. As a matter of fact, there's very little daylight between Nancy Pelosi's omnibus in the 117th Congress and Mike Johnson's omnibus in the 118th Congress. In spite of Americans giving Republicans the majority in order to stop Democrats' America Last destructive agenda. Instead, Mike Johnson worked with Chuck Schumer rather than with us and gave Joe Biden and the Democrats everything that they wanted. No different than how Speaker Hakeem Jeffries would have done. And no, I'm bumping around, but this is the same letter. And no, electing a new speaker will not give us the majority, will not give the majority to the Democrats. That only happens if more Republicans retire early or Republicans actually vote for Hakeem Jeffries. It's not complicated, Taylor says, period. It's not complicated, period. It's simple math. James, I read that letter. I mean, it's, you don't have to be an expert on legislative policy and read that letter and at least the excerpts that I just read and come to any other conclusion. Then I don't see a way out of this for Speaker Johnson to avoid Greene calling for her resolution to be voted on the House floor. And given the pending retirements that she referenced in her letter, within, I think, a 3 or 4 week period, the Republican majority will be down to one vote. And so I just say this, and then I want to get, curious to get your thoughts on it, and then we'll kind of move on. But one simple sentence struck me in that letter, and it was a 3-word sentence, and it was this: it's simple math. And I think where we're headed, James, the irony of where I think we're headed is when Matt Gaetz and the eight people who voted to overthrow Kevin McCarthy and vacate the speaker's chair, it was math. It was a 216 to 210 vote. But there were only 8 Republicans that joined 208 Democrats. All Democrats in Congress voted to vacate the speaker's office. Part of the controversy surrounding Kevin McCarthy was he allowed votes on the floor for Ukraine funding. And the Democrats have come out publicly and said that, they did not save Kevin McCarthy, but if Mike Johnson allows a vote on Ukraine funding, it will pass because the Republican conference is split, and I think you'll see 40 to 45% of the conference vote for that funding, maybe 55, 60%-ish vote against it. I mean, they are split, and just about all the Democrats would vote for it, James. And so the irony of this is that Mike Johnson, who is not a moderate, very much a conservative, can end up being saved by Democrats, and that, James, would be simple math.
That would be hilarious, first and foremost.
Yes.
Chip, if I remember correctly, and I don't have any of the tape, and I don't remember when this happened. I don't remember exactly when he was voted in. But I remember you saying, and I could be wrong about this, at the time, that this was going to be tough sledding from the start. I think you were kind of spot on about it. Like,
Yeah.
I know he's a conservative. I know he holds super conservative values, but he's basically jumping in and we're just hoping for the best. And essentially, the spending bill crushed him.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's the only way to really put it. I mean,
Absolutely. And that's the heart of Marjorie's letter to her
yeah.
colleagues
If you
is the spending bill.
if you ask any conservative radio host, any conservative person in general, but most of the hosts and people that I work with, I'm finding them saying like, if you really look through this bill, it doesn't do anything for the right. Like, even though let's say we'll use abortion for example, there are some helpful if you're pro life, there are some helpful parts of the bill, but then it also swings all the way to the left in the same sense.
Sure.
And if you're Speaker Mike Johnson, who's been very clear about that he's extremely pro life, and that's a major part of what his life and his religion. And then you just sign away on the bill.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
like you allow it to, and again, there's much more than that for the conservative audience. That's just like, there's no way you allow this, and this. And Marjorie Taylor Greene put it on paper so people can see it, and they said, "Okay, now all right, everybody, now do your job, vote him out."
Yeah, and look, it only takes one person to call the resolution up. I mean, and guess what? Where I agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I don't always agree with her, but where I agree with her in her letter, it is simple math. But simple math can work in a multitude of directions, right? I mean, only if the Democrats get what they want, which is Ukraine funding, then then all of a sudden, math works both directions. You could lose 18 to 19, 20 or Republicans, and you're still fine. Either way, it's not a good look for Republicans. And what I tell you is simple math, James, and I know Doug would agree with this too, is the larger your majority is, the more as Republicans, the more conservative your legislative agenda can be. And the flip side is true for the Democrats. The larger their majority is, the more progressive their agenda can be. And so, with the 1, 2, 3, 4 vote majority, and in a Democrat Senate and the Democrat White House, it just it puts all the Republicans, I think, in a tough position in the House. But anyway, I wanted to flag that today because I think I don't think this is going away. I am interested to hear Doug's take on it on Friday. But let me change gears for a second before we talk about the eclipse on Monday, which was really cool. Some big developments yesterday in Oxford, Michigan, and I've got kind of mixed emotions about this. But for the first time in history, the parents of a school shooter were sentenced to prison. Both parents, Jennifer and James Crumley, the parents of the Michigan school shooter that gunned down 4 of his classmates in Oxford, Michigan back in 2021. The parents were sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison by the judge. And I'm just curious, James, get your thoughts on it. I've got mixed emotions about it. I'm a parent, and certainly I have my kids are my responsibility. But we all know that kids can make bonehead decisions as they grow up, and it's always a reflection on me. And when they make bonehead decisions, that hurts as a parent. But at the same time, wow. I mean, this is something else. This is something that has never happened before. And I was, I guess, a little bit surprised that the husband and the wife both got the same sentence. It was the husband that brought the firearm for Ethan Crumley, who is the school shooter, who is now spending the rest of his life in prison. And so, anyway, I wanted to get your thoughts on that because that was new news, and that that sentence came down yesterday in an Oxford, Michigan courtroom.
Well, for me, it's got positives in the sense that I'm not a parent, so I'm not going to try to pretend I know what the parents of the school shooter were, and I'm not going to pretend I know what the parents of the victims were. But and I don't know if this is going to work, but they set a precedent that is super important going forward, right?
Oh, yes.
It's if your kid is responsible for a school shooting, there's a good chance you're going to be responsible too.
Yeah.
And maybe I don't know how many shootings this will stop. This country has far too many, and it's to me it's not even worth getting into the gun debate about it. Because there are plenty of responsible gun owners and there are plenty of irresponsible gun owners, and it goes both ways. And you can argue it till we're blue. We could literally argue it till we're blue in the face that guns kill people. No, people kill people. Blah, blah, blah. We could do that for hours. It's not important. This is important.
Yes.
They told every parent in America, if your son goes into a school and kills people, even if they don't kill people, but if they kill people, you are most likely going to go to jail if there were warning signs. If they can find warning signs, and you weren't paying attention, you're out.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
And there were warning signs. I mean, let's face it, the parents were called to the school the day of the shooting to discuss, some writings of their son Ethan. And instead of pulling their son out of school that day and saying, gosh, this is really disturbing, we should withdraw our son from school and talk to him and make certain that everything is okay. Instead, they said, leave him in school. We're going to go back to work. Well, it's no big deal. And then an hour later, he shoots up 4 classmates. So
and they said his parenting wasn't on their parenting wasn't on trial, but it technically is.
It technically is.
It technically is.
It technically is. And when they have video of the father showing a 15-year-old how to use the firearm in the shooting range, that doesn't help when the 15-year-old shows up at school and guns down.
Yeah, for sure. And listen, I'm sure that's a thing that happens every day where parents show their kids how to use a firearm for safety or not safety, whatever. They just want to show their kid, hey, this is how you use it. This is how you protect yourself, or this is how you use it. If an occasion arises that you'll ever need it, hopefully you'll never need to use it. It's not like you're showing him how to use a rifle to hunt. Yes. Right? It's a totally different situation.
Yeah.
And it's not. It was probably not pretty in court, I imagine.
Oh no, I imagine it wasn't.
I'm sure the jury went.
It's interesting. They were sentenced together, but they were tried separately. I really didn't understand that. But,
that was silly.
It is what it is. James, the eclipse was Monday, and I'm in Georgia, so we only got 80% coverage here in Georgia, but it was still pretty cool. It was a little cooler than I thought it would be. My wife went to work that day and didn't have glasses, but she had a colleague at work share the glasses were hers. She thought it was awesome. So
it was pretty cool.
Tell us about your eclipse.
I had the 100% eclipse. All right. I think I want to say that I remember being a kid and seeing an eclipse, like a little kid, and I was like, okay, whatever. And then, because you're a child, nothing matters to you except for toys and bikes and stupid stuff. So the covering of the sun doesn't matter. But then we had one in New York in 2017. I think it was in 2017 we had one, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, 2017.
Somewhere in that time. And I remember we were all working, and then everyone went outside. And the streets were packed.
Yeah.
And everyone was looking up, and I was like, this is really dumb, and I don't want to be here for this. So I went back inside. But Monday, I got to relax in my own home and have a Corona and sit back in a chair that I set up with the funny glasses. Yeah. And it was actually pretty cool. So it was totally worth it.
That's awesome.
You got to see it, especially that at 1:15 it was dark out. It was like right before, it was like dusk. It was really cool.
Yeah.
That part felt cool. And then all of a sudden you're sitting in your house when you go back inside and it's like the sun is back and it's bright as hell. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. It's not nighttime anymore.
Yeah, that's right. No, it was cool, man. It was cool. And it was good to see. It was cool coverage too. Cool national coverage of everything along the line. But man, it happened in a hurry, a big hurry. But 6 hours after the eclipse, the NCAA men's basketball championship happened. And as wild and wacky as this tournament was, And it was. I mean, it was all over the board. We had what I think, and I think most people would say, are the two best teams in the finals: Purdue and UConn.
What we hoped for.
And and so it was great. It was a little bit of a late start on the East Coast. I was a little bit surprised they didn't tip off till 9:20 Eastern time. But I stayed up nevertheless till about, I guess the game ended about 11:30 my time. I think you're on Central Time in Texas, so probably an hour early. But,
it was nice.
What were your thoughts on UConn Purdue, and then also South Carolina Iowa the day before?
Yeah, the UConn Purdue game. I watched a lot of basketball in my life.
Yeah, man, totally.
I have watched a lot of basketball. I'm a massive fan. I cannot figure out what Purdue's game plan was.
Yeah.
Their point guards must have stared too long at the eclipse.
Yeah,
because they couldn't play defense for the life of them. That's fine. Listen, not everybody in NCAA can play defense. Let's be honest about it. A lot of those guys are not going to. Most of those guys are not going pro.
That's right.
But the one guy that is discussed about whether or not he will be a good pro is Zach Edey.
That's
and
right.
They kept dumping him the ball in the post, which I get. He's 7'2", 7'4", whatever. He's a giant. When they were down by 15, they didn't even look to shoot the ball.
No,
they just kept dumping it. I couldn't figure it out for the life of me.
Yeah,
and they pressed with like 9 minutes left for no reason.
It reminded me. Look, I'm an Auburn fan. Everybody knows that, and we lost in the first round this year to Yale. And the reason we lost in the first round to Yale was simple. We all season. All of our wins, we had 27 wins. 26 of those 27 wins were by double digits. So when we won big. And that's great. But what happens when you put yourself in that situation is 18 and 19-year-old kids don't learn how to hit free throws with pressure on them. And so when we finally found ourselves in a close game against Yale in the first round of the tournament where we lost by 2, we missed a lot of free throws late. Because the kids all season were never in a position to hit free throws that mattered. And
those are tough.
And I think Purdue.
You're 19 years old. You're at that line. It's just you and a million fans staring at you. Most of them don't want you to hit it.
That's exactly right. And all season, Purdue is just dump the ball in the middle to Zach Edey every other time they go down the floor.
And they're supposedly a good three-point shooting team.
Yeah.
They said they were talking about what a good 3-point shooting team this was, and they didn't even fit it. It wasn't even on their mind. They didn't swing the ball. That's the other problem is when you're in a game late, there's muscle memory when you're playing basketball.
That's right.
Their muscle memory is catch it, dump it inside.
That's right.
Not swing, try to get the open shot. If Edey's open, we'll hit him with the lob. I didn't see one play run by Purdue that made sense to me as far as trying to get somebody open besides Zach Edey.
Yeah.
You were down 15.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, man. And they were down. I mean, they were down that entire second half, right? I mean, it was
fast. It happened like that.
Exactly. I mean, 30 minutes of that game, UConn had a big lead. First 10 minutes was back and forth. That happens. Basketball games. I think it was tied at 21. And then, and then UConn ends up going on a run there, I think, to go up 6. And then I think they were up no less than 5 the remainder of the game. And so, it was amazing I stayed up because while it was great that the two best teams ended up making it there, UConn hands down was better than everybody in that.
It wasn't even close. I can't remember a team like that in my generation. In my lifetime, maybe I don't even know if the Florida teams were that as good. I know they won back-to-backs, but I don't remember them blowing teams out. I just don't remember it because I was
they didn't. They didn't.
So,
I mean, not like UConn has. I mean, UConn's won their last 12 tournament games, and I think 11 of them have been by double digits. I mean, in the tournament,
blowouts. They're not even remotely interesting.
Not even remotely.
The game before this was the closest thing we had to interesting.
That's right.
And it wasn't. Still wasn't interesting. The game before that, the Elite Eight game, the most interesting part was the 30-0 run.
Yeah. No, that was – look, when you play 6 games When you have to win 6 games to win a tournament, you're not going to be at your best for 6 games. You're going to play a game where it's sloppy. And for UConn, that was the Illinois game in the Final 8 until they went on a 30-0 run.
Yeah, you were like, are they going to stay in this? And then they put on arguably the best basket. If you've ever really want to enjoy watching a basketball game, watch that 30-0 run.
Yeah.
No, I've never seen anything like it where it was the other team didn't have a chance in hell. It's so incredible to watch good basketball. Dan Hurley has figured something out with this team that
yes, he has.
It wasn't like they didn't have the dump it into the Klingon game that the Purdue had with Edey, obviously. But he's such a massive part of their offense when they swing the ball. Their guys are allowed to make plays.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing I like about UConn, and we can jump off them in a second, but when you watch them play, they are not an NBA offense. That doesn't exist in college. Get that out of your mind. They cannot beat an NBA team. Please stop saying that.
Yeah.
Even the Detroit Pistons.
That's right.
But they play a free game. Like when they were shooting threes, they weren't swing threes. Some of them were just like, oh, I'm open. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, this guy's going to guard me. I'm going to have to take this three because the matchup makes sense.
Yeah.
That is winning basketball, is you got guys that are just going to make the right decisions.
That's right.
And yes, they're swinging it, and they get open shots, and Purdue's defense was hot garbage in that second half. But for the most part, it's guys just making the right decision. That's how you have good basketball.
Yeah, totally, man, totally. But a tournament's always great. I know you can't do that in football, but I think an expanded playoff in football, which we're going to, is the right direction because it does. It creates a little bit about what we see in the tournament. Obviously,
you never know what's going to happen next year. You're telling me Florida State. Let's have this conversation real quick. You're telling me Florida State got in. You never know. I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah, no. Look what NC State did. I mean, in basketball. Yeah. I mean,
they were zero shot.
Yeah.
NC State had to win the tournament to get into the tournament.
And then made it to the Final Four. I mean, it was one of the most incredible runs I can imagine that I can ever recall in NCAA basketball history. I mean, it absolutely was. Well, let's wrap up with this, James. Big event in Georgia this week with the first major of the year happening 2.5 hours down the road for me. The Masters tournament. Look, it always has a tremendous amount of intrigue, always, because not only because it's the first major of the year, but it's the only major of the year that's played at the same golf course every year, right? U.S. Open, British Open, PGA. You're always rotating through, great golf courses. So that's what makes the mystique of the Masters great, and it's even got a little more mystique now with the formation of the LIV Golf League and John Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau and Dustin Johnson and Sergio Garcia and Cameron Smith and Patrick Reed and all these former Masters winners that are. Bryson didn't win, but a lot of those guys on that list have won a major before. We only get to see the best from both tours play 4 tournaments a year now. And it's the majors. And the majors now happen in April, May, June, and July. So by the time we get done with July, majors are done. So it's over a 4-month time period. But, I don't go to the Masters anymore for 2 reasons, James. Number 1, it's hard to get tickets. Number 2, every time I go, it rains. And so
hold on. Anymore? How many times have you been to the Masters?
Maybe 3 or 4 times.
I hate you so much.
Yeah. And
it's rained every time?
Every time.
All right, time out. Did you have that pimento sandwich everyone talks about?
Yeah.
How good is it? Honestly, tell me how good it is.
It's brutal. It's unbelievable. And the golf gods must think that I have tickets tomorrow. Because tomorrow's forecast for the first round is an 85% chance of showers. And I just want to go on the record and say this is not my fault what happens tomorrow.
It's not about you. Do we want to talk the odds real quick?
Who do you think walks away with the green jacket on Sunday when it's all said and done?
Well, let me read you the top picks. All right. First of all, for everyone wondering, Tiger Woods is going off at 15,000. Okay. So Just a heads up. But here are your top picks right here. So plus 400, Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy at plus 1,000, John Rahm at 1,200, Xander Schauffele at 1,400, and Brooks Koepka at plus 2,000. I want to put my money on Brooks Koepka. I don't know if it's that I don't trust Rory McIlroy ever. And I know people think that this is Scotty Scheffler's to lose because he's been playing great golf, but I don't know. I like Brooks Koepka in this.
I tell you, I always like Brooks in majors, especially because he's proven that that's when his game excels and that's when he steps up. I'm a little hesitant to take him this year because last year when he did so well, I think he finished second or third last year, and he had the lead on Saturday night. The week before last year's Masters, Brooks Koepka won the LIV event. And so he came in playing hot. This year, he played horrendous last week in Florida. I mean, it's 3-round tournament in LIV. In the first round, he was 3 under. Second round, he shot 5 over. And the third round, he shot 5 over. And
he's ranked 33rd right now.
Yeah, so it's just
okay. See, this is where I don't pay attention to golf for anything. Yeah. But that is surprising, and that's why Scott, and he's still, but like you said, he's still, according to BetMGM, the 6th 1, 2, 3. He's got the 5th best odds still. That's how good he is in majors. That says a lot.
I think had he had a good week last week, he'd have the 2nd or 3rd best odds. So I think last week's performance kind of bumped him down a little bit. I'm going to tell you, when Tiger Woods was on his run, and he's had several runs, I remember Masters odds for Tiger Woods being in the plus 120, plus 130 range.
Oh, yeah.
I really thought Scotty Scheffler's odds to win this tournament were going to be plus 200 or below. And so, look, I hate just taking one guy to win, right? Because, you get a lot of people that, almost anybody can win this tournament. Not everybody. They let all the, former champions in. So there's going to be some guys that just are happy to make the cut. But I tell you, Scotty Scheffler at plus 400, I think are tremendous odds because that's only 4-1. I thought his odds were going to be around 2-1. And so, while if you have the choice in any golf tournament to take one golfer of the field, it almost always makes the most sense to pick the field. But there's no bet right now between Scotty Scheffler and the field. It's just, odds on individual golfers. And so I might throw some money down on Scotty Scheffler because, he doesn't have to be playing his best to win. And most golfers do. But I tell you, I love this time of year, James, because it means the weather's about to start getting warmer and good.
Bingo.
The yellow pollen season is over, not the full pollen season. We still have other trees that emit pollens but not that, yellow chalky stuff that we get in the South. That's not the pine and just nasty stuff that, sits around on your deck until until you got to pressure wash it off, all that stuff. But it's a great time of year. And in Georgia too, obviously it's 2.5 hours down the road, but once Masters week comes, it is kind of like another spring break holiday here because, things do kind of shut down because so many people are going to and from the Masters. So we'll when we have Friday Fun Day in a couple days, and Doug is able to join us again, we'll talk Masters. We'll know what the first round leaderboard looks like at that point in time.
Right. It'll be Tiger Woods at the top, guys. Come on,
yeah.
We all know he's back. And listen, he's abstained from sex, so he's totally back.
Yeah,
I will bring this up. Someone joked, they were like, yeah, but when he was on his run, wasn't he only having sex?
Yeah, look.
I was like, yes, that's exactly what
it's always unorthodox preparation.
It's so absurd to even bring that up. Why would they even mention that?
Well, I don't know, but look, Tiger's not made it through 4 rounds of a tournament in a long time.
Yeah.
I just hope he can make the cut, make it through 4 rounds. Like it'd be
Make
fun
the
to
cut.
see.
That's all we need. We need to
That's all
see
we
you
need.
on the gut. We need that. We need to see that. We want to see that Sunday red, but we all
That's
know.
exactly right. That's exactly right. James, well, I'm going to give you the final word, and we're going to wrap it up for this Wednesday. So I'll give you the final word on the April 10th Wednesday Doug Collins podcast.
We still got Friday coming up. It's going to be fun. In a couple weeks, I think we're going to try to get Chan Gailey on either post-draft or right before the draft.
Oh, that'd be great. Always love hearing Chan. I always love his insights.
He's going to give insight, and he hopefully can convince me that I want J.J. McCarthy as my quarterback. And also, again, enjoy the Masters this weekend. Don't forget about Sunday Red.
Sunday Red. That's exactly right.
Sunday Red.
And again, I'm Chip Lake. Thanks for joining in. I'm guest hosting this week in the Doug Collins podcast, Wednesday, April 10th. But we'll be back in a couple days for Friday's Finest. I hope you can tune in. Thanks for joining us.